Hello, in this video we will see how to do this expandable floating button, okay? If I come here and I click on this button, as you can see it will expand and we will have these three buttons, okay? So guys, get excited for this and let's jump into the code. Okay, here I have an empty project, okay? The first thing we want to do, we want to add this list, okay? So let's come here and instead of this vstack, what we can do, we can remove this and add our list, okay? And what we want inside this list is a text, okay? So let's go ahead and add this text. Okay, perfect. As you can see, we have a list, okay? And everything is working perfectly. Now, the next thing we want to do, we want to add this button, okay? We can come on this list and do a right click and we can embed it into a Z tag. And now, inside this Z tag, what we can do, we can add a button. So it's gonna to be button. For the action, for now, we can simply leave it empty. And for the content of our button, what we can do, we can add an image, okay? So let's do that image. For the name, what we want, the name of this image is arrow shape turn up, okay? So let's go ahead and add the name. So image system name, arrow shape turn up right field, okay? And as you can see, we have a button, okay? I don't know if you guys can see. Let me maybe zoom in. And as you can see, we have a button, okay? But now what we can do, we can style our button, okay? So here on this button, we can add a font. And now our button is a little bit bigger. What we can also do, we can add a foreground color. So we want to change the foreground color to white. And we don't see our button anymore, okay? Because the background is also white, okay? So what we can do is come here and change the background color. And for the color, we want it to be blue. Okay, perfect. Now we can at least see our button, okay? Here after this font, we can add the padding. And for the shape, we want a cycle shape, okay? So let's do that. Let's work on the shape. Yeah, clip shape. And it's gonna to be a cycle. Okay, perfect. I think our button is looking good. Now what we can do, we can put this button at this edge, okay? Because we don't want our button to be at the center of our screen, okay? So how do we do this? In order to do this, what we can do, we can come here on this button, okay? And we can put this button inside the vstack, okay? So let me right click on this button and build into vstack. And before the button, what we can do, we can add a spacer. And now as you can see, we push our button to the very bottom of the screen, okay? So what we want, we don't want this to be center either at the bottom. What we want this to be at the very right of our screen, okay? So here inside this button, what we can do, we can come here again, do a right click and build into a H tag, okay? And now for inside this H tag, what we can do, we can also add a spacer. And if I add a spacer, now you can see that our button is aligned to the right, okay? And this is cool, okay? This is a way to do it, but what if I tell you there's a better way to do this, okay? So instead of adding all those spacer, okay, what we can do, we can simply come here and cut this button and we can remove this vstack, okay? And let us paste our button again. And as you can see, we are going back to the original position, okay? But here on this zigzag, what we can do, we can simply come here and add an alignment, okay? So let me show you alignment. And we want it to be at the bottom trailing, okay? So bottom. And as you can see, we align it to the bottom and to the trailing position, okay? And here you can also change it. Maybe if you want to be here at the very left, what you can do, you can also add this bottom leading. And if I do bottom leading, you can see that it will add it to the bottom leading, okay? But for the sake of this video, what we want is bottom trailing, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And now what we can do, we can simply add the padding to this button, okay? So let me come on this button, and here I want the padding. Or maybe we can even add this padding to the image itself, okay? So let me cut it, add it here to the image, and we get the same result, okay? Now the next thing we want to do, we want to add these three buttons, okay? As you can see, we have three buttons. So here on this button, what we can do a right click on this button and embed this into a vstack, okay? Because we want all of this button to be inside a vstack, okay? So here we can collapse this button and add our three buttons, okay? So let's do that. For our first button, it's gonna to be button. For the action, we can leave it empty. And now for our label, what we can do, we can simply add an image, okay? So let's do that image. For the name of the image is gonna to be link. And now we can style our image, okay? So here I added a font, a foreground color, a frame, a background, and also a clip shade, okay? So what we want to do, we want to add this button 3 times, okay, as you can see. And the only thing that we will change is only this name, okay? So let me come here, and I can simply copy this button multiple times and paste it. Okay, here I have my 3 buttons. So what we can do, we can simply come here for the name and change the name, okay? So here is going to be doc.on.doc, and you can see we change the image. And for the last one, we want an envelope, okay? So let me just cut this and paste envelope. And as you can see, we change the image, okay? Now what we can do, we can work on the logic, okay? Because as you can see on the finish app, when I click on this, as you can see, this image first change, okay? So we don't have the same image, and we want to display those 3 buttons, okay? Only when we click on this for the first time, okay? So how can we do that? In order to do that, the first thing we want to do is to add a state property, okay? So if I come here and I tab my state property, we will call it isRotated, okay? So now that we have a state property, what we can do, we can simply come on these 3 buttons, and what we can do, we can wrap this inside a logic, okay? So what we want to do, we want to say that these 3 buttons, we only want to show them when this value is true, okay? So if isRotated, so if this is true, we want to show our 3 buttons, okay? And to show you that it's working, if I change this false to true, we can now see these 3 buttons, okay? So now for now, let us change it to false, and we can work on this logic, okay? So when we click on this button, we want to change this Boolean, okay? So let us go back to the action of this button, okay? So right here, and what we want to say, we want to simply say that every time we click on this button, we take this isRotated and we want to toggle the value, okay? So here it will simply, in case it's false, it will simply toggle it to true, okay? So let's give it a try. If I come here and I click on this, we toggle this, and you can see that now, because this isRotated is true, our 3 buttons will appear, okay? Now what we want to do, as you can see here, the transition is not that good, okay? And we can also notice that here we change the name of this image, okay? So how can we achieve this? In order to achieve this, we can first start with this button, okay? What we want to do, we want to change the name of this image when this is true, okay? So how do we do that? In order to do that, we can simply come on this system name, okay? And here we don't want a fixed value, okay? Instead of that, we can simply call this isRotated and say, if this isRotated is true, okay? So if this is true, what we want this name, okay? We want this X mark, okay? But in case it's false, what we want is this name, okay? So if our logic is correct, now when I will click on this, it will change the icon. And as you can see, it does it, okay? If I click again, it will switch back to our original icon, okay? So now I think the last thing we want to do is this transition, okay? When these 3 buttons appear, we want to add an animation, okay? So what we can do in order to add this animation, we can come back on this isRotated toggle, and we want to say that we want to do this with animation, okay? So let me cut it and add with animation. And now we can paste our isRotate toggle, okay? And now if I click again, you can see the animation, okay? You can see that it's faded in and faded out, okay? If you notice, it's faded in and faded out, okay? But we don't want to stop here, okay? Because on the finish up, as you can see, the animation is a little bit nicer, okay? We can even see that we have here a rotation effect, okay? So let us come on this image, and after this background white, what we can do, we can simply add our rotation effect, okay? That rotation effect. And the effect we want to add here is, we want to say that we want a rotation in terms of degrees. And what we want, in case isRotated is true, the value we want is minus 90 degrees. And if it's false, we want it to be 0, okay? And since we are here, what we can also add, we can add a padding, another padding. So what we want here, we want to add this padding. And in case our isRotated is true, what we want to add a padding of 20. And in case it's false, we don't want padding, okay? And here we can specify that we want a bottom padding. Okay, perfect. Now the last thing we want to do, we want to come on here, okay, on this V stack, and we want to add a transition to the whole V stack, okay? So we can simply come here and add this transition, and we want it to be scale. Okay, perfect. Now let us test our app. So if I come here and I click on this, as you can see, everything works perfectly, okay? We have this nice animation, and we also have this smooth rotation, okay? The last thing we want to do is just to run our app. And here we go. Everything looks nice and smooth, okay? Okay guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If that's the case, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.